So I'm hoping, I haven't been at this work very long. We're still relatively new to it. I've learned so much from so many people who are here at this conference, just through emails and putting faces to names. It's been so great. So I hope today I can kind of share with you my thought process going through all this work. It's still very new, and feel free to come and talk to me later about the things that you hear and things that we've learned. So I'm hoping my story will be some lessons learned for some of you maybe, and maybe also some inspiration for some of the things that we're doing in our small little corner of the world. So just some background. In Wyoming, like many states I've learned, state statute allows on private lands and state lands that a landowner or someone that they hire or ask to do this can take beaver lethally whenever they're damming irrigation, ditches, constructing dams or ponds, dangerous to livestock. These are the actual words in the law. And then flooding meadows. And the italicized words there are just my thoughts on this. So it's very liberal. We also have a fur trapping season that goes from October through April. And I feel pretty confident saying over 90% of the state is unlimited quota. So those are some of the issues that we deal with in Wyoming. And so when I was an aquatic habitat biologist coming on, I was really excited to, take advantage of situations where we're getting nuisance calls from people who didn't want to kill them, but wanted them gone, and use them to help support aquatic habitat for fish and wildlife in other places. So this is my first beaver I ever caught up in the left corner. I feel like probably everyone's face looks like that when they catch their first beaver. I was pretty excited and unexpectedly got really good at it really fast. So I got lots of calls coming in and had some mixed feelings about it after a while. So it started feeling like this picture where we were just getting overwhelmed with calls. And I pretty quickly realized that first year that we needed a different approach. We needed a new strategy because what we were doing was just resulting in way too much demand. We didn't have anyone dedicated to this work. It was just kind of something that whoever, and this is kind of how it works in Wyoming in general, whoever has time and interest does it, even if you don't have a lot of experience in it, which can lead to some cool things and some frustrating things. So, with all these calls coming in, I wanted to be able to help, but I wasn't really supposed to be doing this as a huge part of my job. So I had to really justify it whenever I did do it. When I started, I didn't think our approach was very effective. We were moving beavers individually. We'd put everything that we found from one location at the same location that was new, but we might do that over a matter of 2 weeks. And we also didn't have a lot of places lined up ready for them. So sometimes we were putting them in some marginal habitat that we didn't feel great about. And so I have this picture up here and the idea of random acts of conservation just to kind of highlight, I don't want to put a chilling effect on beaver transplants by any means, relocations, whatever you want to call them. But I think we can give this a lot more thought. And I know a lot of people here have done that, and that's what we're trying to do in Lander as well. On top of that, after a while as a biologist and I was waiting around finding trapping sites in these streams, I was like, some of this stuff is really cool. I don't want to take them out of this. And so that's what led me down the road of thinking more about mitigation. And if the idea is you want to move beavers to do good habitat work elsewhere, maybe you already have something pretty great going on where you have them, and you should try to protect that. So I reached out to a lot of people in other states, tried to shift our focus based on what resources were existing out there, what others were finding successful, did a lot of internal education of our game wardens, other biologists, and we came up with a more strategic approach for how to respond to calls about nuisance beaver that really emphasized understanding their problem, what's going on the ground, what could they try, and then try to triage calls and save relocation efforts for where they were really needed and where we felt really good about the likelihood that they would have success. So we were emphasizing more coexistence, but we didn't really have a great way to provide technical resources, so it was kind of a thoughts and prayers kind of approach at the beginning. But I'd still do site visits when I had time to help people understand what was going on their properties and do some creative problem solving to find things that were easy to implement that would work for them. And that's how I met Jenny, who's in this picture here, she had some issues with flooding on a property where she kept her horses. So I went out with her. We found some solutions that worked for her that year, but she got really interested in beavers and just what they do in general. So we crossed the river and found this gem, which is one of my favorite pictures that shows how great the diverse habitat is that beavers can create. That, like, I can't replicate that with stream restoration work. It's just not the same. So if you look in the top of this picture, that's the perennial stream that's running through. And this is the beaver pond that the beavers entirely created that's been there probably for decades. It's completely willowed in. It's just an amazing site. So this was pretty cool to find. Jenny was really inspired by this, spent a lot of time out there watching beavers, read all the beaver books, got on board with my approach for mitigation, and it inspired her to infuse that into her artwork. So this is some of her artwork. She has a lot of pottery, mostly focusing on Wyoming wildlife, some of the really glamorous species. But she also does some more creative things to highlight other wildlife that you don't typically see in art, and really tries to educate people about conservation issues. So this is some work she did to highlight the different species that are influenced by road traffic in Wyoming. And then she donates a portion of the proceeds from her sales to the conservation group that's working on the issue. So if you walk by Jenny's studio in Lander today, you'll get bombarded with a bunch of beaver pottery, beaver paintings, and it's different for people, and they stop and talk to her. And she'll break away and really just tries to focus on educating people just on an individual basis about the benefits of beaver and why it's worth trying to coexist with them. This is a really cool pottery piece that she made. And honestly, just because of the number of people she reaches through this work, I think she might be doing more for the image and tolerance of beaver in our county than maybe anyone else right now. So just prop to other artists out there, educators. Like, this work, I think, is really important. She's also convinced a new local brewery to put beavers on their first club coasters. So she's just reaching people in lots of really neat ways. And then she does donate proceeds from her beaver art back to local mitigation. The Wyoming Wetlands Society, and Cody's here representing them today, they've been really great helping us funnel those funds so we can use them for beaver mitigation. And so far, that's helped contribute to building our new beaver trailer so we can hold families of beavers together and release them together in a much less stressful environment than we used to have. And I'm happy to talk to people about this later too if you want. Jerry's the biologist who helped design and build this. He's pretty incredible. But Jenny also doesn't just do art and talk to people. She and her husband spent much of their lives managing ranches. So she's able to she's got her connections out in the community in ways that I don't yet, and she's able to communicate with producers to consider non-lethal approaches to beaver management. So for example, for a month they were damming up that headgate that's behind me in the picture, and she convinced them to give us some time, let's see if we can deter them. So she was out there almost every day tearing dam material out of that headgate until I could have a place and had time to come out and move that pair of beavers. So I'm going to wrap this up with some more recent news. So like I mentioned, Jenny talks to lots of people about these issues. She's a great partner. And recently, someone she knows at the Wyoming Wildlife Federation was inspired by her art and her passion and some of the work that's going on in Jackson Cody, and came to me and another game and fish biologist and said, what can we do to improve beaver restoration in Lander? And so we looked at our limiting factors, which are still being able to provide more significant technical support for mitigation and tie that into our transplant approach. And so I really like, we decided to create a new position that's still in development that's fully dedicated to providing technical support for beaver mitigation and supporting a more strategic beaver transplant program. So I'm really excited about that. And I never put in this many words before, but I think it was the Wish Push People's Beaver Management Plan. They had those 3 words: retain, restore, and rehome. And that's really where I've seen our efforts shifting, because it's a lot easier to protect something that you already have than it is to fix it once it's broken. And I'm just really excited to be able to do that more in the landscape. I don't know why my voice is shaking so much, but this is really exciting. And I'll just wrap it up with one last thing. Just if you're working on this stuff, just keep going at it, because it can pay off eventually, and you can get some really neat things about it. And my colleague who works at the Game and Fish Department kind of helps funnel nuisance calls through. She told me this year that they had someone call for the first time with a nuisance issue, and it was the first time, wasn't the first call on a nuisance issue, but it was the first time someone called and said, what can I do to keep them? Like, we have this problem, but what can I do to keep them? So, sorry. So I hope that's an inspiring story for some folks, and yeah, just thanks everyone for all the good work that you're doing out there.